I think most people underestimate the effects of altitude. I know I did when I did my first climb. I'd say the best thing you could do is be as prepared as possible. Don't take things lightly. Don't think that you're better than the mountain or better than the altitude just because you are a certain level of fitness. So I set a personal goal of climbing to the tallest mountain of 50 countries. My name is Devin Matharu. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, and I'm an amateur mountaineer. I love hiking and climbing. I love being outdoors, pushing myself in the gym, outside of the gym. I started climbing in 2018 when I summited Kilimanjaro. And when I came back from that trip, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I set a personal goal of climbing to the tallest mountain of 50 countries. I think what inspired me was the feeling that I had of pushing myself to the limit and the feeling of accomplishment when you get to the summit. And I think chasing that feeling is honestly what inspired me to keep going. So I've done Mount Kilimanjaro, El Carazon in Ecuador, Iliniza Norte in Ecuador. I've done the tallest mountain of both Scotland and Ireland. I've had unsuccessful attempts at Cotopaxi and Chimborazo. I just got back from Mount Rainier last year, and I'm attempting Mont Blanc in 2 weeks.
What inspired you to take on the challenge of climbing Mont Blanc?
It's the tallest point of 2 countries, so it helps with my overall goal. I've heard it's great for training for 8,000 meter peaks. It's one of the pinnacles of mountaineering where I think everything began.
What are you most nervous about Mont Blanc?
We're going earlier in the season, so probably the weather. I think the peak climbing season is from June to September. So going a bit earlier than that, obviously you have weather concerns, something that's outside of your control. So definitely something that I'm worried about. I think I mentioned earlier that I had a failed attempt at Cotopaxi. So I did Cotopaxi with my dad, and he trained. He didn't train in altitude, but he trained a lot for that as well. We got to about 5,000 meters, maybe 5,100 meters, and he decided that he couldn't go anymore. Me personally, I was feeling fine. I had the will to keep going. I was physically fine, but he just couldn't keep going. He was exhausted. So we made the decision between me, him, and the guide to turn back. Obviously, it was the best decision because it's the safest for everyone. But me personally, I haven't failed at a climb yet until that moment. So it was something that I kind of had to deal with. How to deal with failure, how to deal with like something that's outside of your control. Overall, like I said, it was the best thing for the group. It was the safest thing, but it was something that I kind of had to never face before. It was something that was challenging, and I had to deal with it. I think most people underestimate the effects of altitude. I know I did when I did my first climb, and it doesn't really matter how fit you are. If you're a marathon runner, if you can bench 225, it doesn't matter. You don't know what it's gonna do to you until you're actually in there and in the moment. I'd say the best thing you could do is be as prepared as possible. Don't take things lightly. Don't think that you're better than the mountain or better than the altitude just because you are a certain level of fitness. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and it affects everyone completely different. There is no there is no way that you can just kind of get out of it without being prepared as much as possible, or without being without doing as much training as you possibly can. I think one thing that I've noticed improvement in is my technical abilities. So using an ice axe, walking with crampons, navigating a rope when you're in a rope team, stuff that you can't necessarily train in a gym, and stuff that comes by going on these high altitude climbs, glacier travel, that kind of thing. So the more that I do, the more I've noticed that my skills have gotten better. I'm still, like I said, I'm still an amateur mountaineer, but I've definitely noticed improvement in that aspect. When I'm not preparing for a climb, I like to incorporate lifting weights, and then when I do have a climb, I build up some cardio and more endurance, more high intensity workouts, stuff like that.
If you could recommend a place for someone who wants to start their first high altitude climb, what would it be?
I think for me, it was Kilimanjaro. So I'd recommend that to anyone. It's not really a climb, it's more of a hike, but you still feel the effects of altitude. It's still incredibly rewarding. And me personally, I met some great people along the way. So you get the effects of altitude, you get a great climb, a great hike, and hopefully you get to meet some people like I did. So
And on that note, if you could go back and give yourself advice before your first significant climb, what would it be?
if I had to go back, I would definitely say safety first. It's not always a rush. Sometimes things are outside of your control, like weather or the ability of your climbing partners, but it doesn't affect the overall experience and it doesn't affect the overall goal that you're trying to accomplish. When I attempted Chimborazo in Ecuador, I got to 5,800 meters of elevation. And at that time, my guide and I decided that it was best just to go down, just because of inclement weather and the risk of avalanches. But we both decided that hitting the 6,000-meter mark would be a great accomplishment. It would be a mental push just to get the extra 200 meters, and it would be a physical push just pushing through the bad weather. There was hail and sleet and snow. It was windy. We couldn't really see. But we both agreed that 200 meters more would be safe. It would be a good accomplishment. And it would also be a test of how far we could go. That 200 meters was probably the toughest thing I've ever done, but we did get there. We didn't summit. We got to 6,000 meters and decided it was better to be safe to get down. So that's what we did. So my dream climb would be the Matterhorn, just because of how iconic it is. I'm going to the Alps in a couple weeks, so hopefully I get a chance to see it. So that's going to be great, but I'd love to go back and attempt it.
Many climbers have rituals or superstitions they adhere to before a big climb. Do you have any pre climb rituals or habits that you swear by?
There's a certain song that I listen to before I climb. It's Outro by M83. So anytime I'm about to start a big climb, I listen to that on my phone and my AirPods, and then I get going. So
Thank you so much, Devin, and we look forward to seeing some footage of your expedition whilst you're climbing Mount Blanc.
yeah, thanks guys.